Do you need both of them or maybe none? Let's get a deeper look today. Hi, welcome to the Art App, and today we're going to compare two lightest Hourglass Ambient lighting palettes, this year's Deer palette and last year's Dragon palette. And I will try to show how different they look on the face, and I hope that by the end of this video you will learn if you need both of them or maybe none. When I first opened them, I thought, oh my god, they are pretty identical. But after a little bit of playtime, after doing several makeup looks, and after closer comparisons, I realized that they are not as similar as I initially thought. So let me share my findings. Oh, looks like I forgot to take off the plastic. Much better. Let's start with what Hourglass is most famous for: finishing powders. Both palettes have two finishing powders, and the first pan in both of them is finishing powder in the shade Dream Light. You might wonder why I would need so many powders and two of them is the same shade. But trust me, I use them a lot. I used them mainly in two ways. The first one I learned from Morgan Turner. After you're done with your makeup, spray your face with a setting spray and let it dry a little bit. Then take a big fluffy brush, pick up some finishing powder and put it all over your face. You'll see right away. The side with the powder looks smoother, softer, and even a little bit more blurry. And the second one helps you to fix harsh edges of your blush or bronzer, especially if they are creeping closer to your nose. You just use a fluffy brush with a little bit of the powder and buff it on the edge, and it just melts and disappears. The second powder, in Deer, it's Aura Light, it's marbled ivory, and in Dragon it's Divine Light, similar ivory shade, and it's also available as a single. So basically each palette has two balancing finishing powder shades, one cooler and one warmer, in order to suit better your preferences or maybe your undertone. If you are curious but hesitant about spending this much money on Hourglass finishing powders, the pearlescent shade from this squad from CoverGirl in the shade Notice Me Muse 700 has a very similar finish if you apply it with a very fluffy brush, very lightly all over your face. And if you try it, let me know how it will go. Moving on to highlighters. In Dragon you get Sunlit Strobe Light. It's champagne metallic that's super reflective. In Deer, the highlighter leans more pearlescent ivory pink with soft silver sparkles. Let's compare the highlighter. The first one is the one from Dragon palette. It's Sunlit Strobe Light highlighter, and as you can see, it is very bright. So let's see how it is applied. You do have to buff it a little bit. So from this side we will have Dragon. Let me move a little bit here so you can see the reflect. And in the Deer palette, we have the highlighter here, and it is Iridescent Strobe Light. And I can see right in the pen that it is much more gentle. So turning the brush, so you can see that this highlighter is definitely brighter. You can literally see the stroke of light here, while this one is more subtle and more gentle. On face, I personally prefer a highlighter from the Deer palette because it melts into your skin. It gives you that soft candlelight glow. While the highlighter from the Dragon palette is much more metallic, and I mainly use it as an eyeshadow topper instead. At first glance, the bronzers look very different. The one in the Deer palette is marbled, while the one from the Dragon palette is monotone. Also, as far as I remember, the bronzer in a Dragon palette is a new shade, while the one that we have in the Deer palette is Diffused Bronze Light, and you can buy separately. Let's see them in action. Now the bronzer. In the Dragon palette, it is like solid brown and the shade is soft bronze. Let's see. You can definitely see that it works really nice on my skin complexion. Though I would say maybe it is slightly yellow leaning, but nevertheless, I would say that it works beautifully. Now in the Dear palette, you can see the bronzer is here and it has a very beautiful marble texture. And the shade is called Diffused Bronzer Light. Let's turn our brush and see how this one works on me. Maybe a little bit more because it's definitely more sheer. As you can see, the bronzer from the Dear palette is definitely more sheer, and I think it's maybe even lighter in color. For me, Dragon's bronzer works better in summer when I have more tan and I want more warmth on my face. The Dearest bronzer is more suited for winter when I'm looking for something more subtle, something soft, something lighter and more gentle. Something that gives life to my skin without overdoing it. Both palettes have two blush shades, but they give very different vibes. Peach Fusion from Dragon palette has more, I would say, like peachy, rosy undertones, and also it has those marbled bronzer lines. While Radiant Peach in Dear palette, it leans more like straightforward peach. It's lighter, it's softer, it's a little bit more sheer, but peachy peach. Let's start with the peach shade. In the Dragon palette, it is called Peach Fusion and it's this shade. It's not solid peach or kind of coral. It has a marble effect with the mixture of brown and peach. And it does have a little bit of shimmer to it. Let's see how it works on this side. I would say that it definitely leans a little bit like corally peach, and because of the brown marble effect, it is very easy to blend in with the bronzer. Now in the Dear palette, you have a true solid peach and the shade is called Radiant Peach. It definitely has a kind of glow to it, so let's see how it works. In real life, I would say that this side leans more peach, while this one has a kind of brick or brick undertone, but otherwise they are pretty close, though this one is much more subtle. Between these two, I actually prefer the peach blush from the Dragon palette because on my skin, it looks like a very natural flush of color. Let's check out how the pinks will work. In the Dragon palette, it's definitely leaning more into mauve, while in the Dear palette, it's definitely more cool toned. Dragon's Mauve Haze is more brownish muted pink with soft satin glow. The color is definitely muted and it seamlessly blends into my bronzer. Dear's Vibrant Pink is definitely lighter, more straightforward pink and more frosty. The pink from the Dear palette gives you a rosy glow, a frosty rosy glow, and I think it reminds me a little bit of pink blush from Dior. Between these two pinks, I definitely lean into the one from the Dear palette because it gives a very fresh, rosy pink kind of look and it looks really like effortless on me. If I had to summarize, I would say that Dear is lighter, softer, less saturated. It is for those who want natural lit, blurred, a little bit of color on their face. Dragon, on the other hand, is bolder. The bronzer is warmer, the blushes are more pigmented, and everything feels more sunlit and summery. If you are paler and you love natural soft glow, go for Dear. But if you want your bronzer or your blush to show up a little bit more, Dragon will be your perfect choice. The other thing that I noticed is blushes in the Dragon palette, according to my speculation, are designed to complement a bronzer because they have a kind of muteness and brownness to seamlessly blend into the bronzer. While in the Dear palette, the blushes are more straightforward. They are monotone in color and they are the one responsible for getting any color in this palette. And when it comes to applying these baked color products, I found that denser, firmer brushes work the best. They really pick up the product and buff it into your skin. If you apply these blushes or bronzers with something fluffy like this, you will need to dip into the product a lot of times, and it might take time to see the color on your face. Unless you're going for a softer look, so maybe it will work for you in that case. Personally, I'm really happy to have both palettes because Dear is my winter palette when I'm a little bit paler and I want something light, sheer, and not overdoing it. And Dragon is my summer palette when I have a little bit more tan and I want a little bit of warmth on my complexion. I don't plan to expand my collection of these palettes, but if Hourglass decides to reach into Flora and they come up with Sakura palette, I'm sorry, but my wallet will be doomed. Also, can we talk about the packaging this year? I think this Dear is so whimsical. I really love the design. Though I'm a little bit concerned about how scratch resistant this palette is because it looks like it's painted over and I am afraid that the paint can chip off a little bit. Nevertheless, I also consider maybe adding a little bit of rhinestones to make it even more whimsical. So let me know if I should proceed with this idea. Getting back to our original question, do you need both of them? Definitely no. Unless you're a collector, you can afford it, or you have an emotional attachment to Dears like I do. Let me know. Are you planning to pick any of them, or do you have Hourglass palettes? If yes, how you're using them? Maybe you have blush, bronzer. Let me know everything in the comment section below. I would love to chat about how you use them. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.